Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Enjoy the story. No one made Alexander Reed laugh. Not his board members, not his PR team, not even his 80-year-old son who once tried tap dancing in a chicken costume. That morning, the penthouse-level office of Reed Ventures was as silent as usual. Except for the ticking of a 40,000 Swiss clock. And the steady, impatient fingers of a billionaire flipping through Nanny resumes like they were parking tickets. She lasted 4 days. Alexander tossed another folder aside. His assistant flinched. To be fair, sir, your son did tie her shoes together, find someone else. One more day like this and I'll send him to military school. Meanwhile downstairs in the lobby, Lila Carter tried to keep her sneakers from squeaking. She'd taken 2 buses, spilled orange juice on her blouse, and now stood holding a worn folder of references soaked from the rain. Name? The receptionist asked, glancing at her from behind designer glasses. Lila Carter. I'm here for the nanny interview. The woman raised an eyebrow, eyeing her wet hair and mismatched socks. You know this is the 48th floor, right? Lila smiled. Gravity's my second enemy today. First one was a taxi puddle. Upstairs, Alexander leaned back. I don't want polished. I want someone who won't quit when he glues the dog's fur to the floor again. Just then, the elevator dinged. Lila stumbled out, dropped her folder, and slipped on the marble, catching herself by hugging the receptionist's desk. I'm okay. That was just an interpretive dance called survival. From behind the glass wall, Alexander looked up. He watched her stand up, brush her soaked bangs from her forehead, and offer a sheepish wave. He didn't smile. But his assistant noticed didn't look away either. Cliffhanger, send her in, Alexander said quietly. Let's see if this one survives lunch. Lila stepped into the office like it was a museum, quiet, cold, and definitely out of her price range. Marble floors, tall glass windows. And Alexander Reed behind a desk big enough to host a family dinner. He didn't stand. Just looked up from his laptop with the same expression one might give a parking ticket. You're 5 minutes late. Lila exhaled. Then I'm improving. I was 20 late for my last interview. Silence. Alexander tapped the table once. Sit. Let's make this fast. She sat. The leather chair squeaked under her soaked jeans. She placed the wrinkled folder on his desk and smoothed it out like it might apologize for her. I don't care about your resume, he said flatly. Great, she replied. It's barely legible after the juice incident anyway. Alexander blinked. The corner of his mouth just maybe ticked upward. Barely. My son, he said, folding his hands, has scared away 6 nannies in 3 months. That's impressive, Lila said. Is he accepting students? A pause. Then, his name is Noah. He's 8. He's smart, defiant, and difficult. I'm Lila. 28. Smart, occasionally clumsy, and very patient. Another pause. Alexander leaned back. And if he draws on your shoes with permanent marker? I'd draw a matching pair on the other foot. This time, the corner of his mouth definitely moved. From outside the glass, his assistant stared. She hadn't seen him make that face in years. Alexander leaned forward. Fine. 1 week trial. No promises. Lila nodded. Same goes for me. If your espresso machine attacks again, I'm out. He actually blinked twice. Cut to Lila following the assistant down a gold-trimmed hallway toward the private suite. Mr. Reed never laughs, the woman whispered. You sure you're ready for this? I babysat 4 nephews during a flu outbreak. Compared to that, I imagine your boss is a scented candle. At the end of the hallway, a door opened. Inside, a boy sat on the floor, surrounded by Legos, a juice box in one hand and a scowl in the other. He looked up. You're not Miss Susan. Nope, Lila smiled. I'm the discount version. But I do dinosaur impressions. The boy raised an eyebrow. Prove it. She cleared her throat, flared her nostrils, and let out the most ridiculous Trex growl anyone had ever dared to do inside a billionaire's home. The assistant gasped. The boy giggled. From the hallway, Alexander heard it. And for the first time in years so did he. Cliffhanger outside the room, Alexander pressed one hand to the glass and whispered, "What was that sound?" Alexander stood frozen in the hallway. That sound short, high-pitched, real. A laugh. His son's. And then his own. Quiet, short-lived, but unmistakably his. He pulled back from the glass, almost annoyed by himself. Inside, Lila had transformed the room into a prehistoric jungle. She hunched on the floor, stomping like a velociraptor, while Noah tossed pillows at her yelling, "Extinction is coming." "I'm a survivor," she shouted. "I made it through public school and cafeteria meatloaf." Noah burst out laughing again. Alexander stepped in. The air shifted. Lila froze mid-roar, one arm in the air, holding a sock puppet that now looked out of place. Noah whispered, "That's Dad." Lila straightened up slowly. "Hello, Mr. Reed. We were studying evolution." Alexander looked at his son. Then at Lila. He didn't speak for 5 long seconds. Finally, he laughed. It wasn't a question. Lila nodded, trying not to look proud. 3 times, actually. One was a snort. Alexander turned to Noah. "What did I tell you about respecting adults?" Noah shrugged. "She started it." Lila added, "And I finished it with sound effects and mild trauma." Silence. Again. Alexander's gaze rested on Lila longer than necessary. Then he turned to go. "I have meetings. Ms. Carter, make sure he doesn't destroy the wing." "No promises," she called after him. When the door shut, Noah whispered, "You didn't run away." "Not yet," Lila said. "But if he starts juggling knives, I might reconsider." 2 hours later, Lila found the kitchen. Her stomach growled louder than the blender. The chef blinked. "We usually don't feed staff." "I'm not staff," she smiled. "I'm a babysitter on a hunger strike." She sat at the marble counter, biting into a grilled cheese that probably cost more than her rent. That's when Alexander walked in. Suit off. Rolled up sleeves. Holding a wine glass like it owed him money. He stopped. Raised an eyebrow. "You found the kitchen." "Don't worry, I only ate half the fridge." Pause. "Then you know he hasn't smiled in months," Alexander said quietly. Lila wiped cheese from her lip. "Most kids don't need toys. They need attention and permission to be weird." He stared at her. "You're unusual." She sipped his untouched water. "You're welcome." Another pause. "I'm not used to laughter in this house," he said, almost to himself. Lila stood. Well, maybe it was just waiting for a proper dinosaur. As she walked past him, she added, "Oh, and by the way, velociraptors were feathered." Alexander didn't respond. But after she left, he smirked. A full smirk. Alone in the kitchen, he whispered, "Feathered really?" Cliffhanger the next morning, the staff stared at a photo in shock. Lila and Noah mid-dinosaur dance on the billionaire's private security feed. At precisely 7:03 a.m., the mansion's kitchen buzzed louder than the espresso machine. 3 staff members huddled around a tablet, mouths slightly open. Is that the nanny? She's doing the chicken dance. No, wait, look at Mr. Reed's face. They froze the frame. There it was. A billionaire CEO, stone-faced, ruthless, caught mid-smile on a security feed. Not just a smirk. A laugh. Real. Visible. The butler whispered like it was a secret, he has dimples? Upstairs, Lila knew none of this. She was too busy chasing Noah, who insisted on brushing his teeth while doing jumping jacks. 2 minutes, Noah. Not 200 steps. He spat toothpaste like a dragon. Cardio keeps the plaque away. Down the hall, Alexander adjusted his tie in front of the mirror. But something distracted him. That sound again, laughter. His house had been quiet for so long, the echo of joy felt foreign. He stepped into the hallway just as Lila slipped on a toy car. She grabbed the doorframe, barely avoiding disaster. You didn't see that. I see everything, he said, not missing a beat. Then you must have seen my flawless recovery. Alexander blinked, watching as Noah zoomed past wearing pajama pants and a superhero cape. Do you let him dress himself? Lila shrugged. Self-expression builds confidence. Or confusion. She smiled. Same thing in this house, right? He opened his mouth to reply. Then stopped. Be downstairs by 8:30. We're attending a press event. We? I'm bringing Noah. He's the reason we got that charity grant. They want pictures. Lila raised an eyebrow. And me? You're the nanny. I'm not a purse. No. But you're less expensive. She blinked. Then burst out laughing. So did he. It was short. Sharp. But it happened. The hallway went still. Even Noah stopped mid-flight. Did Dad just laugh? Lila turned to Alexander. Are you okay? He cleared his throat. Wear something appropriate. And walked off. Cut to 8:27 a.m. Reed family SUV. Noah sat between 2 stuffed animals. Lila wore a navy dress, borrowed from the housekeeper's niece. A tiny rip at the seam, but she wore it like designer silk. Alexander climbed in last, scanning his phone. Don't talk to the press. Don't wander. And definitely don't mention dinosaurs. Noah groaned. Lila grinned. Got it. Avoid raw talk. At the event, flashbulbs popped like fireworks. Reporters buzzed. Investors smiled. Cameras zoomed in. Alexander gave his speech, crisp and perfect. Lila stood quietly at the back, holding Noah's hand. Then out of nowhere a reporter asked, Mr. Reed, is that your wife? Alexander turned. His eyes locked with Lila's. A pause. The crowd leaned in. No, he said. Lila exhaled. She's the one who made my son laugh again. Everyone froze. Even Lila. And for a moment the room felt warmer. Cliffhanger later that night, Lila opened her phone and saw her own face trending on social media. That night, Lila lay on the guest room bed fully dressed, wide awake, phone glowing in the dark. She didn't have to search her name. It was everywhere. Who is the mystery woman next to billionaire Alexander Reed? Smile spotted on CEO Hanks to her? A nanny or more? She stared at the screen, heart thumping. Most of the photos were harmless. Her standing beside Noah. One where she adjusted his collar. But then a blurry frame of Alexander looking at her. Directly. And softly. The captions went wild. Is that affection in his eyes? Lila groaned and turned off the screen. Down the hallway, Alexander sat in his study, sipping whiskey. He scrolled through the same headlines. His face unreadable. Then, a knock. It wasn't staff. It was Noah half asleep, holding a book. She forgot story time. Alexander blinked. Who did? Lila. She always reads when I can't sleep. He closed the laptop slowly. Come on, Noah yawned. It's better when she does the voices. Alexander stood up. But instead of calling her, he followed Noah to his room. And for the first time in years, Alexander read out loud. Poorly. Monotone. But present. Noah fell asleep halfway through page 3. Alexander tucked him in. Stood there a moment longer than necessary. Outside, Lila watched from the doorway. She didn't say a word. The next morning at breakfast, the chef raised an eyebrow. You're famous. I'm underpaid, Lila replied, pouring cereal. Alexander walked in, fully suited. I need you in the car in 20. Me? Yes. You're part of the story now. I didn't ask to be. That's what makes it believable. She crossed her arms. Am I still just the nanny? He didn't blink. You're the reason my son doesn't hate mornings. Silence. I'll get my shoes. The SUV cut through Manhattan like a bullet. Inside, Lila tried not to fidget. Where are we going again? Photo op community partnership. They expect authenticity. Guess I'll leave the tiara at home. He didn't laugh. But his eyes softened. Slightly. At the Venue Children's Art Center the crowd was smaller. Warmer. Lila helped kids paint stars on the walls. Noah ran around with a glue stick. Alexander stood off to the side, arms crossed but watching. At one point, a little girl tugged on Lila's dress. Are you his mom? Lila froze. No, sweetie. I'm just helping out. But you smiled like one. Across the room, Alexander heard it. Something flickered behind his calm. Later, as they walked back to the car, he asked quietly, You always wanted kids? Lila looked up. I had plans. But life edits things. He didn't pry. But he opened the door for her this time. A small gesture. Almost invisible. But she noticed. Cliffhanger that evening, a sealed envelope arrived at the mansion addressed to Lila. From a lawyer. With her name and a name she hadn't heard in years. Lila stared at the envelope for a full minute before opening it. Thick paper. No return address. Just one name printed in sharp black ink: Carter. Eliza Carter. Her sister. She hadn't heard that name in 4 years. Inside a typed letter, 2 pages long and a check. Not for money. For guardianship consent. Lila sat down slowly. Her breath shallow. At the bottom, scrawled in hurried blue ink, Please, I can't anymore. She needs someone stable. She meant Rosie, Eliza's daughter. Lila's niece. Just 5. Cut to the kitchen. Late evening. Lila sat alone, letter in hand, cereal untouched. Noah tiptoed in. Why are you sad? She looked up. I'm not sad. Then why is your mouth doing that thing? She smiled. Almost. It's just grown-up stuff. Noah nodded like he understood. Then handed her a Lego giraffe. Sometimes I give these to Dad when he's mad. It helps. She took it gently. Thank you, buddy. At the doorway, Alexander watched the exchange silently. He didn't interrupt. But that night, he noticed her eyes were dimmer. The next morning, the mansion's rhythm changed. Lila was quieter. Slower. She didn't argue with the chef. Didn't joke with the butler. Didn't tease Alexander. Until you're distracted, he said as she poured orange juice into a coffee mug. I'm multitasking, she replied. You're spiraling. Pause. She looked up, surprised he noticed. It's personal. I'm not asking for details. Just don't disappear. Her hand stilled. That was the closest thing to concern he'd ever voiced. She nodded, then whispered, what if someone you love couldn't love their own child? Alexander didn't blink. He sat down. Then maybe you were meant to step in. She looked at him, really looked. And for the first time, he wasn't just a CEO. He was human. Later that day, she made a call. Yes, she told the lawyer. Tell Eliza I'll take Rosie. I'll need a few days to arrange travel. When she hung up, her hands were shaking. But her voice wasn't. That evening, Noah ran into the study, breathless. She said yes. Alexander looked up from his laptop. Said yes, to what? To being Rosie's new mom. I heard her. On the phone. Alexander froze. Then quietly asked, who's Rosie? Noah blinked. She's Lila's niece. I think we're getting a roommate. Alexander didn't say anything. But the idea settled in his chest like a warm stone. Upstairs, Lila stared out the window. New York twinkled below. Her life was about to change. Again. She didn't know how Alexander would react or if she'd still have this job next week. But for once, she wasn't afraid of the unknown. Because this time she was choosing it. Cliffhanger. The next morning, Alexander found a note on the kitchen counter, taking a day off. Need to meet someone at the train station. Below it, taped gently, was the Lego giraffe. The train station smelled like coffee, wet pavement, and unsaid things. Lila stood near track 12, scanning every face. Her phone buzzed. Delayed. Platform changed. Gate 7. She turned just in time to see a little girl dragging a pink suitcase and a social worker trying to keep up. The girl looked up. Green eyes. Messy hair. And that same Carter defiance. Rosie, Lila whispered. The child stopped. Stared. Then ran without hesitation. Lila dropped to her knees, arms open. No words. Just warmth. Back at the mansion, Alexander read the note again. Taking a day off. Need to meet someone. He didn't like open-ended sentences. Or mystery. Especially when they came from someone whose presence now mattered. He stared at the Lego giraffe for a long time. Then told his driver, pick her up. Wherever she is. By afternoon, Lila arrived home with Rosie asleep on her shoulder. Her backpack torn. One shoe missing. But her grip tight around Lila's neck. The butler blinked. Do we have a child expansion pack now? Temporary, Lila said. Of course, he nodded, already pouring apple juice. She carried Rosie upstairs, set her down on Noah's extra mattress. That's when Noah peeked in. Is she like me? No, Lila smiled. She's like me. Which means she's loud, stubborn, and allergic to bedtime. Noah nodded solemnly. We'll get along fine. Downstairs, Alexander returned from meetings earlier than usual. He heard voices. Tiny feet on marble. Giggles. And one small voice yelling, this floor is slippery and dangerous and I like it. He followed the chaos to the living room. There, in the center of the rug, was a fort made from blankets and designer chairs. Inside, 2 children. And Lila, holding a flashlight like a scepter. Welcome, traveler, she said without turning. Password? Alexander raised an eyebrow. Power of attorney? Close enough. She peeked out. Their eyes met. I hope you don't mind, she said. It's just for tonight. He looked at Rosie. At Noah. At the way they didn't flinch under his gaze. And finally, at Lila, tired, messy, but glowing. I don't mind, he said. Then added, but you owe me a new armchair. She grinned. It died for a noble cause. That night, as the house finally went quiet, Alexander stood outside the fort, arms crossed. He watched Rosie sleep, curled beside Noah. And Lila leaning against the couch, half asleep herself. He didn't step inside. But he placed something gently near the entrance, a folded blanket and the Lego giraffe. Cliffhanger: the next morning, Rosie woke up to find a note beside her pillow in neat handwriting, "Welcome to the team. Mr. Reed," and below that a drawing of a Trex in a business suit. Rosie held the note like it was made of gold. Did your boss draw this? She asked, eyes wide. Lila peeked over her shoulder. That is a dinosaur in a suit. With glasses. Rosie beamed. He's a smart dinosaur. Noah leaned in, nodding like a critic. Definitely Harvard. Lila tried to hide her smile. Somewhere in this marble palace, the coldest man she'd ever met had drawn a cartoon for a child he'd just met. And that did something strange to her chest. Downstairs, Alexander sipped black coffee. He watched the morning news but didn't hear a word. His eyes kept drifting toward the hallway. Upstairs. Where noise now meant life. Lila entered quietly. She liked the drawing, she said. Said you were the smartest Trex she's ever seen. He didn't look at her. Just muttered, high praise. She sat across from him. Alexander, she said gently. That was new. She'd never said his first name. He didn't stop her. I'm not asking you to change anything. But thank you. For yesterday. He finally looked up. And for a long second there was no sarcasm. Just sincerity. You're welcome. Pause. Do you plan to stay? Lila blinked. For Rosie? He nodded. For this job, she added. He didn't nod. Or speak. But she understood the question was deeper. I don't know yet, she admitted. But I want to try. He nodded once. That was enough. Later that day, Lila took Rosie to the park. Noah came too. With 3 capes and a soccer ball. Lila sat on the bench, sipping iced coffee, watching them chase squirrels. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered, and immediately regretted it. Eliza, she whispered. I just need to know she's safe. She's fine. Silence. Are you mad? I don't have the time to be mad, Lila said quietly. I'm too busy cleaning up your mess. Another pause. Then, softly, I'm sorry. Lila hung up before she cried. Back at the mansion, Rosie handed Alexander a drawing. This is you, she said proudly. But with a cape. Because you're the boss of the whole building. Alexander stared at the stick figure. Did you give me lightning powers? Yes. He blinked. Acceptable. Then surprised everyone by pinning it to the fridge. The staff gasped audibly. Even the butler dropped a spoon. That evening, Lila found a small box on her bed. Inside a tiny name tag. Gold-plated. Lila Carter, Household Operations Manager. Underneath, a note in black ink, unofficial title. Official impact. AR, she read it 3 times. Then sat down. And let herself smile. Cliffhanger: the next morning, a luxury car pulled into the driveway. A woman in heels stepped out. Expensive. confident, and angry. Where is she? She asked. Where's the nanny who's pretending to be family? She walked like a verdict. Sharp heels. Sleek dress. Hair that didn't move. The front door didn't creak, it flinched when she entered. I'm looking for Lila Carter, the woman announced. The butler blinked. And you are? Vanessa Langford. She didn't need to explain further. Everyone in the mansion recognized the name. Alexander's former fiancée, the last woman ever allowed to redecorate his life. Upstairs, Lila was organizing Rosie's tiny clothes when a staff member knocked. There's a guest. She asked for you by name. Lila walked down slowly, fingers still smelling like baby detergent. She turned the corner and froze. Vanessa smiled. It wasn't warm. So you're the reason he canceled the Europe trip. I'm sorry? Lila blinked. You moved in like a stray cat, Vanessa snapped. And now the media thinks Yuri what? His partner? Lila stayed calm. I take care of his son. And now my niece. You're a nanny, Vanessa said, like it was a disease. Don't mistake proximity for permanence. Lila didn't flinch. I never asked to be in his life. I just didn't run away. Vanessa laughed once. Cold. Oh honey. Everyone runs eventually. Behind them, a door clicked. Alexander stepped in. What's going on? Vanessa turned, voice sugary. Just catching up with your staff. He didn't smile. Don't, he said quietly. She's not staff. She's why this house finally feels like a home. Lila's breath caught. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. Is that so? She asked, walking toward the door. Well. Let's see how long that illusion lasts. And she left. Not with drama. But with intent. Later that night, Lila sat alone in the garden. The air smelled like jasmine and warning signs. Alexander walked out, hands in his pockets. She's not a threat, he said. She's a mirror, Lila replied. Of everything I'm not. He paused. You're right. Lila looked up, surprised. She's wealthy. Polished. Knows every wine region by heart, he said slowly. But she never once asked Noah what his favorite color was. Lila stayed silent. He added, it's orange. In case you were wondering. She laughed softly. Then he asked, are you going to run? She looked him straight in the eyes. No, but I might walk away if you start building walls again. He nodded. Quiet. Thoughtful. I'll keep the door open. Cliffhanger. The next morning, a video leaked online. Vanessa in a private interview, whispering to the camera, he's being manipulated. By her. And in the background a blurry frame of Lila hugging Noah. It started with a ping. Then another. By breakfast, Lila's phone was buzzing non-stop. She didn't need to open the links, the headlines said enough. Ex-fiancé claims billionaire is being manipulated by nanny. Exclusive. Is this a Cinderella scam? Lila Carter too close, too fast? Rosie sat beside her, chewing cereal. Noah looked confused. Are they talking about you? He asked. Lila nodded. He narrowed his eyes. They spelled your name wrong. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Downstairs, Alexander read the same headlines. He said nothing. But the grip on his coffee mug was tight. Too tight. It cracked. By midday, the video had over 3 million views. Vanessa's voice played softly through newsroom speakers. He doesn't see it, but she's inserted herself into everything. His child, his home, even his calendar. She's clever that way. And then the final blow, she knows how to make him feel needed. That's how manipulation works. Cut to blurry footage of Lila hugging Noah at the art center. Twisted. Cropped. Weaponized. Lila sat in the guest room, scrolling in silence. There were comments. Thousands. Some cruel. Some confused. Some threatening. She shut the phone off. Rosie entered, holding crayons. Can we draw? Lila forced a smile. Always. As they sketched rainbows and animals, Lila's hand trembled. Not from fear. But from fury. She hadn't asked for this spotlight. She just wanted to protect the kids. And maybe just maybe be seen. Not used. Not accused. That evening, Alexander walked into her room without knocking. I've contacted legal, he said. We'll file defamation. Lila shook her head. No, no. If we fight back publicly, she wins. She wants the war. He paused. So you'd rather stay quiet and let them tear you apart? No, she said firmly. I'd rather live louder. Make this house louder. Make truth louder. A long silence. He looked at her, truly looked. You amaze me. She laughed bitterly. Most men run the other way. I'm not most men. Then, more softly, I know this is hard. But you're not alone. Lila blinked. Once, then nodded. The next day, she walked Noah and Rosie to school herself. Cameras followed. Reporters shouted. But Lila didn't flinch. She wore jeans. A hoodie. And the same calm she used when Noah refused vegetables. At the gates, a woman stopped her. Are you the nanny? Lila smiled. Yes. But he said you're more than that. Lila tilted her head. Who? The woman smiled. Mr. Reed. This morning. Interview with GQ. Lila's heart skipped. She hadn't seen that one. She walked home quickly. Pulled up the video. There he was. In full suit. Calm, confident. And when the interviewer asked, is she your girlfriend? Your live-in nanny? Your PR strategy? Alexander replied, she's the reason I laugh again. Label that however you want. Lila exhaled. And for the first time in days she let herself cry. Not because she was broken. But because someone finally saw her whole. Cliffhanger that night, someone slipped an envelope under Lila's door. Inside a glossy invitation. Vanessa's upcoming gala. One line scrawled across the top, if you want the last word, say it in heels. The invitation felt like a dare. Black cardstock. Gold foil. And that line taunting, venomous, if you want the last word, say it in heels. Lila stared at it all night. She wasn't the gala type. Her heels were from a thrift store in Queens. But this wasn't about fashion. It was about standing tall on any floor. The next morning, she found Alexander in the kitchen. He was feeding Rosie toast while reading quarterly reports. Multitasking. Effortless. Vanessa sent me an invite, Lila said quietly. He looked up. I know. She CC'd my lawyer. Should I go? He paused. You don't have to. I know. Another beat. But do you want to? He asked. Lila considered that. But I think I need to. Alexander didn't argue. He simply said, then let me call someone. That evening, a box arrived. Inside a navy gown. Classic. Elegant. And a note, handwritten. For the woman who makes noise without raising her voice. Rosie gasped when she saw it. Are you gonna be a princess? No, Lila smiled. Just a woman who won't be quiet. Gala night. The ballroom shimmered with chandeliers and old money. Lila walked in alone. Noah had soccer. Rosie had crayons. Alexander had a board meeting in Chicago. This was her moment. Every head turned. The whispers started, is that her? The nanny? She cleans up well. Vanessa noticed too. She floated across the room like perfume and tension. Well, she said smoothly. You didn't trip on the way in. That's progress. Lila smiled. Calm. Composed. I practiced. On your last interview. It made great background noise. Vanessa's jaw twitched. I hope you're enjoying the attention. It's fleeting, you know. I'm not here for attention, Lila said. Just clarity. Oh. Yeah, in case you forgot kids are watching. Noah. Rosie. The world. Vanessa scoffed. And what, you're their hero now? Lila leaned in. No. But I'm the adult who didn't lie on national television. The crowd around them had grown. Quietly. Subtly. Vanessa stepped back. You're still just the nanny. And you're still the woman who left, Lila replied. The difference is I stayed. Through the chaos. Through the noise. A silence settled. Then applause. Light. Polite. But real. Vanessa turned and disappeared into the crowd. Later that night, Lila stood on the terrace. New York glittered like it was proud of her. Her phone buzzed. A text from Alexander. How did it go? She typed, I didn't flinch. She blinked first. 3 dots. That's my girl. She stared at those words for a long time. And for the first time let herself believe them. Cliffhanger. But back in the ballroom, a photographer scrolled through his shots. One frame froze him cold. A shadowy figure behind Lila whispering something. Captured. Timestamped. Leaked within hours. The photo hit the internet by sunrise. Lila. On the terrace. Gown shimmering under chandelier light. But it wasn't the dress that made headlines. It was the man behind her. Leaning close. Whispering. The caption read, Secret Lover? Gala Betrayal? Zoomed in, his face was mostly shadow. But his watch gleamed Rolex. Limited edition. Only 20 made. And one of them belonged to a board member of Reed Ventures. Back at the mansion, Lila woke up to 47 missed calls. Rosie was still asleep, curled around a stuffed dinosaur. Noah was brushing his teeth while singing the Jurassic Park theme. But Lila? She was shaking. She opened her laptop. Headlines. Theories. Speculation. And worst of all, comments. She's playing 2 sides. She climbed fast. She'll fall faster. She slammed the laptop shut. Then her phone rang again. Alexander, she answered, voice already trembling. I didn't even know he was behind me. I know, he said firmly. I watched the footage. He approached you. Not the other way around. That stopped her cold. You had surveillance? It's a gala. Of course I did. That's oddly romantic. Pause. Then, softly, are you okay? He asked. Lila blinked. No one had asked her that in 2 days. No, she whispered. But I will be. Later that morning, Alexander returned from his trip early. He walked into the living room, took one look at her, and handed over a manila envelope. Inside printed screenshots. Time-stamped video frames. Clear as day the man behind Lila wasn't whispering secrets. He was threatening her. Back off while you still can. A board member. Protecting Vanessa's interests. Alexander said nothing. But his jaw? Steel. I'm firing him, he said. Lila touched his arm. No, no. You're a CEO. Be strategic. Not emotional. He looked at her. You want me to keep him? I want you to bury him. With grace. And receipts. He blinked. Then smiled. Household operations manager, huh? She smirked. Don't forget it. By noon, the board member had resigned due to health reasons. Vanessa's PR firm went silent. And Lila? She walked into Noah's classroom to drop off lunch and every parent looked her in the eye. Some with guilt. Some with admiration. But no one looked down on her anymore. That evening, the mansion was quiet. Rosie was asleep. Noah was drawing sharks. Lila sat on the back patio, sipping tea. Alexander joined her, 2 glasses of wine in hand. He handed her one. No news alerts in 4 hours, he said. A record. She clinked her glass against his. To surviving whispers. To rewriting them. They sat in silence a while. Lila, he said slowly. I don't care what the headlines say. She turned to him. I only care what you say, he continued. Her breath caught. Because for the first time in years I feel like I have a partner. She didn't answer right away. Just leaned her head on his shoulder. And whispered, me too. Cliffhanger. But across the city, in a dim office, Vanessa scrolled through security footage again, paused on one frame. Zoomed in. A slip of paper in Lila's hand with a signature she recognized. So she's still hiding something. The slip of paper wasn't meant to be seen. It was folded tight, palmed quietly, but Vanessa had paused the video at just the right second. Zoomed. Enhanced. Isolated. And there it was, a signature. Sharp. Familiar. Hers. From a custody transfer form dated 3 years ago. And Lila had it. At the gala. Vanessa's smile curled like smoke. Well, well, she whispered. She kept the original. She picked up the phone. Get me legal. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Lila tucked Rosie into bed. The little girl yawned, arms wrapped tight around her stuffed giraffe. Will I stay forever? She asked sleepily. Lila's heart tugged. You'll stay as long as you want. What if someone comes back? Lila paused. Then kissed her forehead. Then they'll have to go through me first. Outside the room, Alexander had heard every word. He didn't interrupt. But later, he left something by Lila's bedroom door, a small wooden plaque. Engraved with, home isn't a place. It's a promise. The next morning, Lila received an official envelope. No return address. Just legal weight. Inside, a formal letter from Vanessa's lawyers. Request for custody review and DNA verification. Lila stared at it. Hands steady. Eyes not. Alexander walked in moments later. He saw the letter. And said nothing, just took her hand. She didn't flinch. Didn't cry. She just asked, will you stand with me? His reply was immediate. Always. That afternoon, they met with their own legal team. Vanessa's argument hinges on biology, the attorney explained. She's claiming Rosie isn't your niece. That you have no blood tie. And thus, no standing. Lila's face hardened. I raised her. I fed her when her mother forgot. I held her during nightmares Eliza never showed up for. She's mine. Alexander added, and mine too. If needed. The lawyer blinked. Are you saying? I'm saying put my name on the application, Alexander said. As guardian. Financially. Legally. Permanently. Lila's eyes widened. You don't have to, I want to. She stared at him. This wasn't pity. It was partnership. And for once, she didn't argue. She simply whispered, thank you. Later that night, as the house slept, Lila sat in the study, rereading the custody papers. Her fingers traced Vanessa's signature. The irony wasn't lost on her. This woman, who once left a child behind, now trying to take another one away. Alexander walked in quietly, holding 2 mugs of tea. Still awake? She's trying to erase me, Lila said softly. He handed her the mug. Then we'll write it all over again. Louder. She looked at him. Not like a billionaire. Not like a boss. But like the only man who never once asked her to shrink. She took a sip. And said, then let's make it permanent. Cliffhanger. The next morning, a headline shook the internet. Alexander read files for joint guardianship of child unrelated to him. Below it, a leaked photo him, Lila and Rosie. Hand in hand. Caption, is this love or leverage? Ban muon toi viet t part 14 Kong? The photo was everywhere. Alexander. Lila. Rosie. Holding hands outside the courthouse. But the world didn't see warmth. Or unity. They saw angles. PR move? Is Reed using a child to soften his image? From tycoon to tender? We're not buying it. The tabloids didn't care about bedtime stories. They cared about narratives. And clicks. Lila sat at the breakfast table, phone face down. She hadn't touched her toast. Alexander entered, suit sharp, expression unreadable. I spoke to the PR team, he said. They want to spin it as philanthropy. A legacy play. Lila looked up. And what do you want? He paused. Truth. No spin. She sighed. Then we stand still. Let the storm pass. He took a seat beside her. And if it doesn't? She reached for his hand. Then we build in the rain. Later that morning, Rosie's school sent a message. She'd been called names on the playground. Charity case. Not his real daughter. PR baby. Lila's blood ran cold. Alexander canceled 3 meetings. They arrived at school hand in hand. Rosie ran to Lila, crying. I didn't do anything wrong. You didn't, Lila said, holding her tight. Alexander kneeled beside her. Rosie, he said gently. What do we always say about mean voices? She sniffled. They're loud but not true. That's right. He kissed her forehead. And right there, on that sidewalk, he gave up privacy for protection. He faced the waiting cameras and spoke clearly. She is my daughter in every way that matters. No bloodline can compete with love. That clip went viral in less than an hour. The backlash began to turn. People reposted it. Quoted it. Defended it. Hashtags changed from fake family to real father energy. Strangers wrote essays about chosen families. Even skeptics paused. Because no script could fake that kind of fire. That evening, Lila walked into Alexander's study. He was still in his suit, jacket off, tie loosened. A man unwinding but never unguarded. She sat across from him, silent for a moment. Then said, I used to think I'd have to fight the world alone. You still might, he replied. But not without armor. She smiled. Tired. Grateful. He stood, walked over, and placed something on the table between them. A document. New. Fresh. She opened it slowly. A trust fund. In Rosie's name. With 3 signatures already on it. Alexander. Lila. And one surprise Eliza. She sent it last night, Alexander explained. Her way of letting go. Officially. Lila blinked. For the first time in years she felt the weight lift. Not disappear. But lighten. She finally chose Rosie, Lila whispered. Alexander corrected her. No. You did. First. Always. And in the quiet of that moment nothing about them felt accidental anymore. Cliffhanger. But in a dim cafe across town, a man opened a manila folder. Inside court files. An old photo. A note scrawled across it, if Reed claims this girl we expose his bloodline. The past came wrapped in manila. A file. A photo. A secret long buried beneath silence and strategy. Inside a birth certificate. A name. Alexander Pierce Reed. And below it a handwritten amendment, hidden for decades. Father Richard Langford. Vanessa's uncle. Not the mentor Alexander had always believed. But his biological father. And now the truth was out. A media firestorm loomed. Lila found him on the rooftop garden. He stood still, looking out over the city that had always obeyed him. Tonight, it felt far away. She approached quietly. I saw the papers, she said. I guess I'm the scandal now, he murmured. She touched his arm. No. You're still the man who showed up. When it mattered. He turned to her. Everything I built was for independence. Power. Distance. And now? He looked toward the horizon. And now I realize what I needed most was closeness. Not control. Lila smiled softly. Then maybe this truth sets you free. 2 weeks passed. The media storm faded faster than expected. Turns out, the world cares more about who you love now than where you came from. And Alexander? He didn't hide. He spoke at a press conference. With Lila beside him. And Rosie in his arms. He said one sentence that echoed beyond headlines, I am not defined by blood. I am defined by who I choose to protect. Life slowly returned to its new rhythm. Noah got braces. Rosie started ballet. The mansion felt warmer. Alexander laughed more often, still quiet, but real. And Lila? She no longer felt like a guest in her own story. She belonged. Not because of wealth. But because of worth. One Sunday afternoon, Rosie handed Lila a handmade card. Inside, drawn in crayon, Mommy. Lila's hands trembled. She looked up at Alexander, who nodded gently. Call the lawyer, he said. 3 weeks later, they stood in family court. Alexander. Lila. Rosie. Noah. The judge asked Rosie, do you want this woman to be your mother forever? Rosie nodded. Why? The judge smiled. Because she smells like pancakes and hugs, Rosie replied. And she never lets me feel small. The courtroom chuckled. The gavel dropped. It was official. Lila Carter became Lila Carter Reed. By heart. And by law. That night, the mansion threw a quiet celebration. Just family. Close friends. Cupcakes. Laughter. Alexander raised a glass. To love chosen. Fought for. And finally, home. Lila leaned into him. I never imagined this life. He kissed her temple. That's because you built it. Final montage: Lila walking Rosie and Noah to school, smiling. Alexander sitting on the floor, helping with homework, wearing a ridiculous apron. Family dinners. Blanket forts. Inside jokes. Headlines changing from Power to Parenthood: the billionaire who chose family. Fade out. Voiceover: in a world obsessed with titles and bloodlines, she entered as just the nanny and became the heart of a home that forgot how to feel. Because sometimes the richest love grows in the quietest rooms. The end.